Justin Tafa versus Carlos Felipe. We got plus 170 on Justin Tafa and minus 200 on boy Carlos Felipe. Let's start off with Carlos Felipe, who's coming off a victory over Jorgen De Castro in a fight that he was coming in as a plus 190 underdog. That was a fight that a lot of people maybe they thought that Jorgen didn't really show his best against Greg Hardy and thought he would be able to come back against Philippe here and actually showcase what he was made of and actually showcase what he showed in his fight against Justin Tafa and showing off that explosive power. However, Carlos Felipe had different plans for that fight and he showed a great game plan. Great cardio, great pace, great pressure. Never really let Justin Tafa off the hook. Just always stayed in his face, landing beautiful shots straight down the middle. Didn't really discriminate with the head or the body either. Had some good leg kicks mixed in there as well too. And I thought he showed a glimpse of what his full potential could look like. Now my question is what his chin and where his durability is at, because I feel like that's the only way that he loses this fight. If Justin Tafa lands a beautiful punch right on the button, will Philippe go out? From what I've seen, Philippe does a really good job of rolling what punches. He ate a lot of shots from Jorgen De Castro, who hits very, very hard. And we didn't see him really flinch, didn't get dropped, knocked down, or anything like that. The only real success, and I say success with some quotes here, or at least with an asterisk, is the third round of Jorgen De Castro, where he just pushed up Carlos Felipe up against the cage. Unfortunately for De Castro in that fight, he had a very impatient coach or referee in Kevin Sataki who just wanted to see action. So 10 or 15 seconds into these clinch positions, you're seeing Sataki kind of just push them apart, and then as soon as he resumes the fight, De Castro did the exact same thing, bull rushed Philippe pretty much up against the cage. Not without hitting a bunch of shots though, and was just looking to kind of slow the fight down. Philippe's pace and pressure was definitely getting to him and kind of breaking him, hence why I feel like he went that route of just pushing Philippe up against the cage and kind of slowing down the fight. Philippe, however, did a really good job on the defensive side in terms of landing good shots while defending, not really giving up any takedowns or anything like that. Landing big shots, and all the judges actually scored that third round for Philippe, even though the majority of it was spent with his back against the cage. I'm glad that the judges and referees are seeing it that way, as it's usually the guy that's dishing out the damage that should be getting those scorecards rather than the guy who's just trying to take control. If you guys remember, the criteria with judging is damage should be first, then comes cage control. So I'm glad that the judges were on point. They were tested that night. It was almost like a trick question type of round for them. And luckily for them, they actually came out on the proper side. And we did see Philippe get the decision victory in that fight. The fight before that against Sergey Spivak, we saw Spivak take a very all-around approach in beating Philippe. Clinching him up against the cage, landing some good damage there, and then in that third round, getting him down and really establishing that top position, landing some good shots from on top, and winning that fight. At least in my book, 29-28, with Philippe taking the second round, I believe it was. So I'm seeing an improving game from Carlos Felipe, who will be 26 by the time that this fight happens, and I feel like he has a better overall game and full package compared to what we've seen from Justin Tafa. Now, Tafa, on the other end, we're talking about a guy who's coming off a KO victory, beautiful KO victory over Juan Adams, and then before that, he was the one that got put up by Jorgen De Castro. The one thing that Tafa has gotten away with is his power. Like, he shows deficiencies in certain parts of his games or of his game, but I will give him some credit for actually going for takedowns. Not something we really see from a guy who's mainly known to be a heavy-handed puncher. He has some decent takedowns, some decent trips, but he does show some green and vulnerability on the ground. Even when he's on the ground, there are instances where he gets easily reversed, and guys are doing some good work from on top on him. His special weapon, if you want to have like wrestlers have signature moves, I'd say Justin Tafa's signature move is his uppercut. He's put out a couple guys with it. He generates a lot of power with it, but I find it hard to believe that he'll be able to land cleanly on Carlos Felipe, who shows very good head movement and good defensive striking. We've never really seen him in trouble when it comes to the striking realm. Or at least in terms of getting hurt and dropped. And I truly think that's Tafa's really only way to win this fight. I think Felipe will have him outvolumed pretty much in every single round that Carlos Felipe has fought up until this point. He's landed at least 20 strikes. except with the third round of his fight against Sergey Spivak, where we saw Spivak actually get him to the ground and really nullify the offense that was coming back his way. So I think Tafa is going to be outgunned here. He doesn't mind being pushed back, which kind of sucks, and is not to your advantage when you're going up against a guy like Carlos, who likes to push the pace forward, likes to get in your face, throw the jab out there, really work the body as well too. And he just loves coming forward and landing shots. And Tafa is more of the guy that seems to be looking for that knockout punch. I'm not the most impressed with Tafa. I feel like he relies on his power too much, and it's worked out for him. Other than the Jorgen De Castro fight, where he just showed poor fight IQ in terms of just lunging forward, it looked like he was holding out his left arm to try to block anything that was coming from De Castro. But as soon as he put his hand down and went for his own punch, that's when De Castro decided to throw his counter and absolutely stiff Justin Tafa in that fight. So that was very unfortunate for Tafa to have to go through and suffer his first loss. Another thing about Tafa's record that I found very intriguing, of the 5 victories that he's gotten, one of them being his amateur fight, none of his opponents has fought again other than one, I believe it was Dave Taumopao, absolutely butchering that name, but that's the fight before he made it to the UFC. He finished that guy in the second round, but that guy fought one more time and lost again. So he ended up with his record at 3-3. Very green is Justin Tafa still. Probably didn't have the most competition down under there to really test his skill and test his might before coming over to the UFC. And that might be to his detriment, because he's really having to, find his potential and find his true self within the UFC against some of these sharks. And I feel like Carlos Felipe, from a stylistic standpoint, is a very difficult matchup. You're talking about a guy who will definitely outvolume Justin Tafa here, and probably have a better overall game. Now, my concern on the Felipe side is he might feel like he wants to stroke his ego a little bit, and he might go punch for Justin Tafa. However, I still feel like the head movement that we've seen from Felipe, he keeps it quite sharp, and he's pretty good with staying out of the way of these big shots and rolling with big shots as well too. You got to think that he's been trained to avoid that uppercut, as Justin Tafa has put out many people with that single strike. So hopefully he minds his P's and Q's in that aspect. Another thing that I'm kind of worried about with backing Felipe is his willingness to almost just be pushed up against the cage with not much urgency to get off of it. And I've seen Tafa actually be successful with kind of holding guys up against the cage. Not as successful as prior opponents, like as maybe Sergey Spivak was, but I think that Justin Tafa could win a couple minutes here and there if he's able to push up Felipe, and if we don't see much urgency from Felipe to get out of those situations. So that's where my concern lies with Felipe. However, if this does reach the judges' scorecards, I heavily favor Felipe here. We still need to get a better gauge on what Justin Tafa's cardio looks like as well too. So I'm not really sure what we'll see from him later in the second round or later in the third round, as we've never really seen him in that part of a fight yet. The longest his fights have gone, I think, is midway through the second round. I just want to confirm this on my Tapology yet. It was his first ever fight that went 3.5 minutes into the second round, and that was a fight that was grapple heavy as well too. His opponent had success with reversing Tafa a couple times, but the ultimate or the final sequence that led to the finish of his opponent was probably one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. So the guy has full mount on Justin Tafa and kind of sits his butt on his chest, not in the way that a normal full mount would be, but he actually props his leg up and is kind of just sitting on him like he's squatting on top of him. That's not the position that you want to have, because it really allows the opponent to buck and shrimp and get out of those positions. And that's exactly what Justin Tafa did that night, because he reversed the position, got full mount himself, and then started raining down shots on his opponent, and that's how he got him out of there. So the later this fight goes, I feel like I gotta lean the Carlos Felipe side, but that's only because we've seen him go to a decision 2 times in a row now, and we've seen his cardio hold up. Whereas Justin Tafa, we just haven't seen that yet. But given the pace, pressure, and style of Felipe, I gotta assume that he's going to be the one that's fresher later in this fight. And I wouldn't be mad at anybody that takes a shot at the over 1.5 here too, because I feel like Felipe will be hella durable. He doesn't seem like the most keen on getting guys out of there. But then again, Justin Tafa's durability is definitely questionable, especially after getting knocked out as viciously as he did to Jorgen Castro back in October of 2019. I'm not saying that Felipe is as big of a puncher as Jorgen De Castro, but you got to consider what Tafa's durability is like. We've seen him rocked in earlier fights in his career too, so that's something to keep an eye on. However, I still like Felipe to win this fight. Minus 200 is not too bad of a line. Yeah, I do like Felipe here. That power of Tafa does scare me, but from what I've seen from Felipe, it seems like he has a beard on him. It seems like he rolls with punches very well, and he never really shows any signs of getting stunned or rocked or anything like that as of yet. I feel like Tafa is the hardest puncher that he's fought up until this point. Jorgen De Castro is obviously a very hard puncher himself too, but I feel like we'll see Felipe actually endure whatever Tafa throws at him, and we'll see a much more complete game from from Felipe, as well as the pace, pressure, and volume too. The volume is the main thing here, as I feel like it's just going to keep Tafa super uncomfortable, kind of just telegraphing all of his shots and his punches, and that's where I think Felipe will be able to take advantage. So I'm going to take Felipe to win this fight, probably either late third round finish or decision. I'll go with decision just to be on the safe side, but I do like I do like Felipe to win this fight.